When I started out recording myself for my YouTube channel, I went through a lot of really bad ways to capture video. From an assortment of webcams to various consumer camcorders and cameras, I wasted a lot of money on gear that never quite met my expectations in terms of quality or convenience. That's why I'm here today with this video. I want to spare you from wasting your time and money like I did. If you want to record yourself for YouTube videos, live streams, video courses, or just about anything, let me show you a better way to do it. And let me just say that there's nothing wrong with using whatever gear you can afford. That's how I got started, and I worked my way up to an ideal setup. So if any of this stuff is outside of your price range, just keep it in mind as something to work toward. Here's what you'll need. Because we will be doing some heavy computer processing, you'll need a somewhat powerful desktop or a powerful laptop. At a minimum, you'll need something like a 4th generation quad-core Intel Core i5 with a dedicated GPU. You'll also need a video capture device, a camera that can output video through HDMI, and software to record your video signal through your computer. In this tutorial, I want to stay focused on capturing video, but you may want to capture audio for your videos as well. For that, you'll need an external microphone. I'm using an Audio-Technica AT4040 condenser mic that plugs into a Behringer Xenix 1204 USB mixer that is connected to my computer. I'll put links to all of this stuff in the description of this video. The setup is fairly simple. My camera is connected to a video capture device, which can record video directly to my computer. I can even live stream, but that's a topic for another tutorial. Next, I'll break down all of the gear and explain how it's used. First, let's discuss the video capture device. I'm using an Elgato Camlink 4K. This gives me excellent video capture quality, and it's really easy to use. It just plugs into a USB 3.0 port. This device does use up a lot of USB bandwidth, so you may need to try different USB ports or change up the order of how you have other devices plugged in if you're having any issues with it. I have 2 of these Camlinks, so I can record 2 different cameras at once. But there's also a PCIe version that you can install into your desktop computer, and it has 4 independent HDMI inputs. I may upgrade to one of these eventually to free up some USB ports. To use the Camlink 4K, your computer must support a GPU like an NVIDIA GTX 960 or better, or AMD RX 470 or better. If you don't need to record video above 1080p resolution, then it may suffice to get an Elgato HD60S or one of the other internal capture cards. These have less demanding GPU requirements. You can get by with a minimum of an NVIDIA GeForce GTX 600 series or the equivalent. You can still record in 1080p on the Camlink, and I found the USB connection to be more reliable than the HD60S. Next, I'll need a camera to provide video to my video capture device. I'm using a Panasonic Lumix S5. This is a mirrorless photography camera that also has a lot of useful video recording features. You could say that this is a relatively expensive camera if you're comparing it to a webcam or consumer camcorder, but it could be inexpensive if you compare it to some of the other cameras on the market. If there's one thing you take away from this video, it's that a photography camera is going to blow away any other type of camera. I spent so much money on bad webcams and camcorders that I could have just bought one of these to begin with and saved myself all that hassle. I also use a Lumix G85 as my over-the-shoulder camera. This is not as good as the S5, but still has really good features and records a great image. There are cameras that are far better than these, but they are also more expensive. At a certain point, camera gear is going to have diminishing returns if all you're doing is recording at a desk. If you need to shoot a variety of scenes and subjects, or you are really into gear, then by all means get a better camera. There are a lot of options out there, so I'll just list some of the important specs and features you should be on the lookout for. HDMI output is essential to send the camera's video to the capture device. You may want to read reviews about the camera you are interested in to get an idea of how well it works with HDMI output. Some cameras have limitations on what you can output. It's likely that you'll need to use the camera menu to configure the HDMI output settings on your camera to correctly output the video or to remove the display overlays. The HDMI port may be standard HDMI, mini HDMI, or micro HDMI. You will need to purchase the appropriate cable that goes from the HDMI port on your camera to the standard HDMI connector on the video capture device. Though you can find standard HDMI cables at the thrift store for really cheap, I recommend buying a single cable rather than trying to add an adapter to a standard HDMI cable. The adapters add stress on the HDMI port and tend to break easily. A right-angle cable works best because it causes less strain on the HDMI port when you move the excess cable off to the side. The next important factors are the camera's video resolution and frame rate. At a minimum, you'll want to be able to output HDMI at 1080p, but if you want an image that is more detailed, or you want to zoom in close while editing, then a camera that outputs HDMI in 4K will be a better option. There is also the frame rate to consider. While 30 frames per second is adequate, you may want the smoother motion you can capture with a camera that outputs HDMI at 60 frames per second. Be sure to verify that there isn't a limitation on the HDMI output. Some cameras may say they record at a high resolution, but their HDMI output resolution is lower than that. Here's another important consideration. What power options does the camera provide? All cameras are going to be battery powered, but that's not a good option for anyone who wants to record YouTube videos because your battery will most certainly run out midway through your recording, so a camera that can be powered by an outlet is crucial. It's fairly easy and inexpensive to purchase a battery conversion cable that will allow you to power your camera for an unlimited amount of time. If you want a good measure of overall video quality, look at the bitrate of the video. If it's low relative to other cameras, you can expect that no matter what features are offered, the video information is going to be limited or compressed. If the bitrate is higher, then the video file will contain more information and more detail. You'll ultimately be throwing a lot of that detail away when you post to YouTube, but it's better to work with high-quality video rather than video that is overly compressed. Webcams are convenient, but they create very compressed video that doesn't look professional. On the other hand, the files they produce are very small, and they don't take up much space. Higher bitrate videos are much larger in file size, but that's necessary if you want the most professional video quality. The next feature you will want in a camera is a lens with a wide zoom range. This is important so you can frame the shot exactly how you want. In my case, I'm sitting at my desk with the camera not far away, so I need a lens that can capture a wide-angle shot. I also want to be able to zoom in closely when recording other subjects. Shopping for lenses is complicated, so just look for an all-purpose lens that is good for vlogging or portrait photography. That should be okay for recording YouTube videos. Many cameras offer a kit lens that is usually all-purpose. I'm using a 20 to 60mm lens and a 12 to 60mm. I'll warn you though, lenses can be expensive, perhaps more expensive than the camera body. Another consideration is the lighting in your studio. You of course need adequate lighting to capture a good image. I won't go into detail about lighting in this video, but a few softbox lights or a ring light will help a lot. Even with the studio lighting, you may want to consider the low light performance of your camera. If you can keep your lights lower, that will be more comfortable on your eyes. Plus, you may want to use light creatively by adding colored lights to your background. Many cameras can capture an image in low lighting, but the image quality can become grainy once you increase the ISO setting. A camera with good low light performance can help your videos look more professional. Moving on to the next feature, most cameras should have both manual and autofocus. Autofocus can be great on some cameras, but not on others. You will want to have the option to focus the camera manually in case the autofocus doesn't perform well. In my case, the Lumix S5 is newer, and the autofocus works great, but on my older Lumix G85, I have to leave it on manual focus, otherwise sometimes it stays out of focus. One of the advantages to using a photography camera is that you can adjust the exposure, ISO, shutter speed, and aperture. For you non-camera geeks, that means you'll be able to fine-tune the camera settings so that you can make the image look exactly the way you want. For example, you don't want your video to be too bright or too dark. You also want to adjust the shutter speed so your movement isn't blurry. And you may want to make the background out of focus. It's likely that there will be different scenes you want to record, so having an option to save custom profiles can be really convenient. For example, I use my over-the-shoulder camera to record my monitor and my desk. Because my monitor is a light source, I need different settings to capture it correctly compared to when I record something on my desk. All I need to do is turn a knob to change to the preset that best suits each scene. The alternative is remembering all the different settings every time you want to record a different scene. I've done that and it's not fun. Another useful feature for your camera to have is an app that can control your camera remotely. It's a huge hassle to have to get up and adjust your camera settings because the buttons are often on the back of the camera. Trust me, it's way easier just to open an app and change all of the camera settings on your phone. Plus, you can use your phone to focus the camera, which can be helpful if you're holding something up in front of your face. That's not to mention that you can also use the remote control app outside the studio to take pictures or record video from a distance. If you want to spend less time correcting color, you can get a camera that offers built-in color profiles. This will allow you to pre-apply color grading from several presets. You may also be able to utilize color profiles to record a flat video that is easier to color grade when you edit. If you plan to use your camera to record B-roll for your videos, or maybe even for recording outside of your studio, you may want extra features like a recording timer, stop motion, slow motion, an external mic input, and HEVC file compression. While this isn't really a feature consideration, I will also mention that you will need a tripod to hold your camera and position it at the correct angle and height. A standard tripod can be found at the thrift store for really cheap. Just make sure it includes the shoe or the part that screws into your camera. But if you want a better, more versatile option, and you can mount something heavy to your wall, I'd recommend getting a boom arm instead of a tripod. It's much easier to position and then move out of the way. I'm not stuck with the cameras in these positions. I can easily take them off the boom arms and put them on a tripod. You will of course need some fairly long HDMI cables for all this. For handheld shots of B-roll, I would recommend recording to the memory card to prevent the HDMI cable or port from getting broken. I've broken a few HDMI cables by being careless. Now that we have the hardware out of the way, let's take a look at how to use the recording software. Once installed, the video capture device can be recognized inside of the recording software. In my case, that's XSplit Broadcaster. You can also use a free application called OBS Studio for this. If you want to learn how to use software like this, I'll link you to a tutorial. You may need to configure the settings of your video capture device to ensure that you're capturing video in the correct quality and resolution. In my case, the cam link just captures in 4K resolution at 30 frames per second. And if I want to lower that, I can just change my recording settings in XSplit. You'll also want to modify the recording settings for your recording software. I'll choose a high quality video recording and ensure that my audio bitrate is high and I'm recording to MP4. You may also need to set up your microphone so that you're capturing audio at a good level. If there is any sort of delay between the audio and the video, you can compensate for that in the recording. Now I can capture the video directly from my camera, but that's not all. I can see myself on a bigger screen. This is much better than trying to see yourself on a small camera flip screen. If you have multiple displays, you can read a script from a teleprompter app. I can also record directly to my computer rather than a memory card. This means I don't have to wait while the files transfer from the memory card to my computer. Recording directly to the memory card will yield the highest quality. Although you can choose a lossless recording quality, I'd choose a lower setting because that will make your file sizes considerably smaller. It will be hard to see any difference in visual quality. If you're concerned about retaining the absolute highest quality video, then you can simultaneously record on your computer and on the memory card as a backup if your camera allows it. If you try to store years worth of YouTube video assets in 4K at the maximum bitrate, you're going to need lots of huge hard drives. I'll tell you from experience, these large files take forever to transfer and back up. You can compress them all manually, but that takes up a lot of time as well. But perhaps the best feature of this recording setup is that I can fully customize what I record in my video. Not only can I show my camera, but I can cycle between multiple cameras if I have them. Or I can create scenes with audio, sound effects, and overlays that appear on top of my camera video. I can even use a green screen to remove my background and replace it with something else. It feels a lot like running your own television studio. XSplit will even allow me to use this layout in place of a webcam in virtual meetings or video calls. While you can control everything within the recording application, having physical buttons you can press is really handy. I use a Stream Deck which can integrate with XSplit and OBS to control my cameras and scenes. It's also able to turn my smart lights on and off and activate various lighting scenes. It's entirely optional, but a must-have in my opinion. Okay, so I know you're thinking, dang Aaron, this is too complicated. And you're right. It is way more complicated than just recording with your webcam, but it's actually really convenient once you get past the initial setup. When I want to record a video, All I need to do is press a button to launch my recording software. I'll press 2 more buttons, one to turn on a smart plug that turns on my camera. The settings are already set correctly as a preset. And the other turns on a smart plug that turns on my ring light and also triggers my smart lights. I'll swing my boom arms into position. I'll make sure my overhead camera is focused correctly. And I'll press a 4th button to start the recording. That's it. I don't have to transfer anything, and I didn't have to change any camera settings or fiddle with controls. For the most part, my recordings will look consistent and professional. It used to be such a hassle to set everything up the old way. It often made me not want to record. I love that I can just record without having to stress about the setup. Even with a webcam, I still had to adjust the settings every time, and even after fine-tuning it, the video quality was never professional looking. The compression gets even worse once you edit and upload compressed video. This technique also beats recording to a memory card for all of the reasons I mentioned in this video. It's way more efficient to record directly to your computer. I hope this tutorial helps you create more professional looking videos while also making it more convenient to record. If it does, be sure to become a subscriber. Thanks for watching and stay creative.